They have not stopped having the conversations. They just stopped having the conversations at the church's table. It's almost as if they need debate class. Okay, well then how do we get them not to believe the false stuff? You're going to have to debate it out of them. You're gonna have to try and get some of these people off the kiddie table because they have too much information for that. Hey y'all, hey, it's your girl Quay. Welcome back to the Heaven in Mind channel where we imagine, inquire, and investigate topics around heaven, Jesus, and real life in Him. All right, so here is what I feel like the church is missing when it comes to young people. Everybody wants to say that this new generation coming up, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen all the gens after the millennials, are leaving the church in mass exodus. There are a couple of assumptions that I think are wrong. Okay, one, a lot of people feel like this generation is walking away from God. Some of them are, a lot of them are not. Secondly, they're not interested in God. Again, some of them are not, but a lot of them are. So, what I have experienced in my own personal life and in having conversations with some of these young people is the fact that they have not stopped having the conversations. They just stopped having the conversations at the church's table. So it used to be coming to church to find like-minded believers to have these conversations about God and about life and all of that. From my experience, okay, your experience may be different. From my experience, a lot of these young people have not stopped having these conversations around God and faith and spirituality and theology and all of that. They have just stopped having these conversations at the church's table. And part of it is, if I'm being honest, I believe that the church is still trying to get them to sit at what we would call the kiddie table, and they have no interest in that. So it's a weird conundrum to be in because you have people who are 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 25 who need foundational Bible teaching. They do, okay? But you can't teach it like we were taught. Father Abraham had many sons and we marching and all of that and climbing Jacob's ladder and all that. That was cool for us because we were being taught biblical foundations at 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. So when you have it that some millennials did not raise their children in the church like they were raised in the church, now you have a generation who need foundational teaching. But the church cannot teach them the way that they've always taught them. You can't teach David and Goliath to a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old in the same way in which we've been teaching David and Goliath to 6, 7, 8, and 9-year-olds. The biggest change, in my opinion, when it comes to this generation is they have access to more information. So the danger in the fact that they are no longer coming to the church's table is twofold. Number one, they can get on YouTube, they can Google some stuff or get on TikTok and come up with a whole theology about what they should believe. And because they don't trust the church's table anymore for these conversations, the second fold of that is that the church has lost influence. So for a lot of young people, the information that they have access to is more influential than the church. So they're picking influences. That's what I think a lot of churches are missing when it comes to how do we engage these young people. So in my previous video, I was talking about having a conversation with a young man in his 20s. Okay. He does not actively go to church. Okay. He goes here, there, sometimes when he feels like it. And we had the conversation. How come you don't go to church? But when we get together in what I call table ministry, where he and I, we get together, we go eat somewhere, and we literally share a meal and we just talk about life and God and all of that. I never have to bring up God with him. He usually brings up God first. That's one of the first things out the gate. He's asking questions and he's being inquisitive about matters of theology, about matters of faith, about matters of life, and all of that. We just having conversation, me and him, over some food. But when I asked him, okay, so then if the church provided a place where you could have conversations like me and you have, would you be more inclined to go? And he said yes. So, really, what some of these churches are missing with young people is they really need to be taught how to defend the faith. It's almost as if they need debate class. Okay. We always talk about these generations, they weren't raised the same way. Some of them talk back and some of them are argumentative and, they the generation that want to know why for everything or whatever. In a sense, that's how the church needs to engage them in their faith because they are, in fact, wrestling. They're not just going to take what you say as gospel because the minute somebody jump on TikTok and says something different, their influences trumps what you got from the church. It's about trust. And so then some people are just like, okay, but if that stuff out there is false, and what we're teaching is true, okay, well, then how do we get them not to believe the false stuff? You're going to have to debate it out of them. You're going to have space and forums for them to discuss their beliefs. You're going to have to try and get some of these people off the kiddie table because they have too much information for that. They want the information and they want it straight. They don't want it watered down. They don't want it spoon fed to them or whatever. You're going to have to challenge them. And they're going to come back with their argument. But you have to have people who don't mind that. They don't mind the pushback because if you push back enough, eventually, if they have bad theology, it will fall apart. But this is a generation who does not have foundational teaching, a lot of them, but they have access to a lot of higher level conversations. And that's what they're hungry for. When I was in seminary school, I was baffled by how many people were asking me about my seminary school experience and whether or not they should go. When in reality, a lot of them just needed a deeper level of Bible study. That's all they needed. You need a really good Bible study, but not necessarily a Bible study where somebody's just taking you line by line, verse by verse, and telling you what you need to know, but really asking the questions, engaging them. What do you think this means? How do you interpret this? Is this problematic for you? That's the pieces that we're missing. Again, not the spoon feeding, but they are looking for deeper study than what some people are getting. And so we have to be careful not to water it down too much for them because then they feel like it's an insult to their intelligence and then there they go. But they do really have, a lot of them, a hunger for the word, for understanding, for knowledge that they're just trying to grapple with. But they need safe places in which to do that grappling where they can also find truth. So that's one of the things that I think that the church is missing when it comes to young people, the zennials, the alphas, is that deeper studying that also includes core foundational teaching about key figures in the Bible. So it's got to be a mix of that, but it has to be in a way that challenges their thinking because this is an informational generation. This is a generation that has a lot of information, but they lack wisdom. They don't know what to do with the information that they have. And that's where I feel like the church could intervene. Okay, you saw all this stuff on TikTok. Let me help you decipher what's true and what's not. And then let me teach you how to now apply this new knowledge. The church could benefit a lot from helping young people get wisdom to be able to coincide with the information that they get online, watching YouTube, podcast, TikTok, those types of things. And so that's where I feel like the church really could get some of those young people back to really challenge them in that area. That's my 2 cents on the matter. Do with it what you feel, but I'll see y'all in the next video.